Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be finishing up the Tree of Life project with the new Pegas Chuck Heads. Now, I hadn't used a scroll saw for about a week and a half. Oddly enough, it was very awkward to utilize the saw again. I felt like I was back at square one. But I caught on pretty quickly and got through it. What I noticed with these new chuck heads, it was so much easier to take the blade in and out of this top piece. I struggled with the old one all the time. Couldn't get it on, it wouldn't lock in, and it's not the actual lock nut, it was where the blade placement was. You almost had to hover it just at the sweet spot to get it to lock in between the little set screws that hold the blade in place. Now, the other thing that I had to figure out was the air nozzle. The placement of the air nozzle is different than the old one. I found a spot on the old one, and I was always pretty much able to put it in that spot, and it was where I needed it to be. But because this head is much smaller and very different, it truly is a very different experience. I'm still trying to find that spot for the air nozzle. It's not a huge struggle, it's just a matter of finding where it's going to work the best for me. During this part of the cut, there's something I realized that I wasn't aware of or didn't pay attention to, and that is the direction that I'm cutting. When there's a lot of turns and a lot of different things that you have to accomplish, you either go in a clockwise or a counterclockwise direction. Now, with straight cuts, it honestly doesn't matter which way you go. If you're doing angled cuts for certain purposes, it does make a difference. But what I found was, and it took me almost to the end of this project to understand and realize it. It finally came to me once I got to the other part of the tree here. I'm going clockwise here, and the cut was just so smooth and perfect. And then I started doing counterclockwise on the other parts where the leaves are. And I was struggling getting around all the curves with the leaves. I was starting to go offline. I mean, going offline is not a bad thing, but when you go off too much, it could be. And I just couldn't seem to get a flow. And it wasn't until I got to the, I don't know, maybe 5 more cuts here, counterclockwise, the light bulb went off. Making the cuts clockwise was so much easier for me. And I think a lot of that has to do with dominant hand, left or right, what's easier for you to make turns and pivot. That does make a difference when you use a scroll saw. And it's amazing to me that I never figured that out until just now. But once I did, the rest of the cutting was pretty awesome. I have to try to remember that. This whole thing was the scroll saw. It's really not a matter of doing things a certain way, or if you follow these rules of thumb, everything will be just hunky-dory. It's not. It's figuring out what works for you. It's never cut and dry. Because it's such a creative craft and you don't really have to be within the lines, there's a lot of things that are very forgiving, that you just do you. So these last 2 big inside cuts I did clockwise, and somewhat being the most complicated part as far as these leaves go, it was such a smooth and beautiful cut. I had no real struggle making the turns. It was amazing. It truly was amazing. I'm so glad that I paid attention to that on this, because I'm now going to utilize this same concept on future projects. And just to confirm that, yes, I need to go clockwise for the most part. because that's what works best for me. So I did the same thing for the outside. Went clockwise all the way around the piece, and I didn't have any issues all the way around. Next week I'll do a brief comparison review of the old heads versus the new ones, what they look like side by side, and we'll see what project I can find then. If you got this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you next week. God bless.